Get in there. Animals belong in cages.
Sheriff Dale Crenshaw shoved a black woman into the holding cell. The bars slammed shut. Her name was Whitney Adams. She'd been driving through a small town in Tennessee, doing nothing wrong. Crenshaw pulled her over.
Why did you stop me?
That was it. That was her crime.
I gave you an order. You gave me attitude. Dogs that bark get put in the kennel, so sit like a good girl.
Whitney's wrists were bruised from the cuffs. Her hands were shaking. But her voice wasn't.
You're going to regret this, Sheriff.
Nobody's coming for you, monkey.
He walked away whistling. 5 minutes later, his phone rang. The voice on the other end didn't come from the county. And what happened next buried Dale Crenshaw's entire career. Before he even hung up. 6 hours earlier, Whitney Adams was standing in her kitchen in Arlington, Virginia, barefoot, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She wasn't wearing a blazer, no heels, no Pentagon badge clipped to her chest, just a white cotton blouse, jeans, and her hair pulled back in a low bun. On the counter sat a cake box. Vanilla buttercream, her mother's favorite. Next to it, a wrapped gift, a leather photo album she'd spent 3 months putting together. Baby photos, graduation, her swearing-in ceremony. 60 years of memories pressed between 2 covers. Whitney's mother, Mama Lou, was turning 78. She lived alone in a small house outside Knoxville. Bad knees, good spirit. She still called Whitney every Sunday morning at 7 sharp, no matter what. This weekend was the one Whitney had circled on her calendar for months. No meetings, no briefings, no classified folders. Just her, the open road, and her mama's birthday. She loaded the cake into the back seat of her silver Nissan Altima, locked her apartment, started driving south. No motorcade, no security detail, no driver. Just a woman going home. That was the thing about Whitney Adams. At the Pentagon, she was Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. She oversaw a $2.3 billion cybersecurity budget. She sat in rooms where generals took notes when she spoke. She had a direct line to people whose names never showed up in the news. But behind the wheel that morning, with gospel music playing low on the radio and the Virginia hills rolling past her window, she was just a daughter with a dented cake box and a long drive ahead. She grew up poor, East Tennessee, a house with 2 bedrooms and 5 people. Her mother cleaned offices at night and braided hair during the day. Her father drove trucks until his back gave out. Whitney earned every single thing she had. Scholarship to Howard University, law degree from Georgetown, recruited by the Department of Defense at 26. By 41, she held one of the highest civilian positions in the building. But none of that was written on her forehead. And on a Tennessee highway, none of that mattered. All anyone saw was a black woman driving alone. Now let's talk about where she was headed, and the stretch of road that changed everything. Harmon County, Tennessee. Population 4,812. 1 traffic light. 1 gas station. 1 main street with a diner, a barber shop, a hardware store, and a tiny hair salon owned by a woman named Edna Calloway. Small town. Tight grip. The biggest building in Harmon wasn't the church. It was the sheriff's station. A squat brick box with an American flag out front and a name painted on every cruiser door. Sheriff Dale Crenshaw. Crenshaw had run Harmon County for 22 years, unopposed in 4 elections. His photo hung in the diner. His cousin ran the tow yard. His brother-in-law sat on the county board. He was the law, the judge, the jury, and everybody knew it. But here's what the people outside Harmon County knew. Over the past 5 years, 83% of traffic stops on Highway 11 involved black or brown drivers. 83%. In a county that was 91% white. 3 civil complaints had been filed against the department. 3. Every single one was dismissed by Crenshaw's own office. He investigated himself and found nothing wrong. Every time. Black drivers who passed through Harmon had a name for that stretch of Highway 11. They called it the checkpoint. Word spread through group chats and road trip forums. Don't speed, don't stop for gas, don't make eye contact. Just get through. Whitney didn't know any of that. She'd taken this route because it was the fastest way to Knoxville. That was the only reason. She crossed the Harmon County line at 1:47 p.m. Windows down, gospel still humming through the speakers. The afternoon sun warm on her arm. She passed the welcome sign. Harmon, population 4,812. A sheriff's cruiser sat parked in a gravel turnout about 200 yards ahead. Whitney glanced at her speedometer. 58 in a 60 zone. She was fine. The cruiser didn't move. She kept driving, eyes forward, hands on the wheel. Then, in her rearview mirror, the cruiser pulled out. Slowly. No siren, no lights, just following. 1 car length back, then half a car length. Whitney's stomach tightened, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she was a black woman alone on a rural highway, and she knew what that cruiser behind her might mean. She gripped the wheel a little tighter, kept her speed steady, kept breathing. Then the lights came on, red and blue, flashing silently in her mirror. Whitney signaled, pulled to the shoulder, turned off the engine, placed both hands on the steering wheel. She did everything right, everything she'd been taught since she was 16 years old. And it wasn't going to matter. Crenshaw took his time. Whitney watched in the side mirror as he stepped out of the cruiser. Slow, deliberate. He adjusted his belt, straightened his hat, slid on a pair of mirrored sunglasses, even though the sun was behind him. He wasn't in a hurry. He was enjoying this. His boots crunched on the gravel. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Each one slower than the last. The crackle of his radio broke the silence, a dispatcher's voice, muffled and distant. He ignored it. Whitney sat still, hands at 10 and 2, window already down, engine off. She could feel the heat rising off the asphalt. A bead of sweat ran down the back of her neck. Crenshaw reached her window. He didn't lean down. He stood tall, looking in at an angle, the way you'd look into a dumpster. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation, no ma'am. Just 2 words dropped like a rock. Whitney kept her voice steady. Of course, officer. Can I ask why I was pulled over? Crenshaw's jaw shifted. Something behind those mirrored lenses went cold. He didn't answer her question. He repeated his. I said license and registration. Louder this time. Whitney nodded. I'm going to reach into my glove compartment now. She said it out loud on purpose. She narrated every movement. Left hand stays on the wheel. Right hand moves slowly, opening the compartment, pulling out the documents. She handed them through the window. Crenshaw took the papers without looking at them. He glanced into the back seat instead. The cake box, the wrapped gift, a leather handbag on the passenger floor. Where are you headed? Knoxville. I'm visiting my mother for her birthday. Long way from wherever you came from. Whitney didn't take the bait. I drove down from Virginia this morning. Crenshaw looked at her license, looked at her, back at the license. Then he tucked it into his chest pocket. Not his clipboard, not his scanner, his pocket. I clocked you doing 72 in a 60 zone. Whitney blinked. She'd been watching her speed the entire drive. She knew exactly how fast she was going. With all due respect, Sheriff, my speedometer read 58. Crenshaw tilted his head, took off his sunglasses. For the first time, Whitney could see his eyes. They were small, flat, amused. "Are you calling me a liar?" "No, sir. I'm telling you what my dashboard showed." "So you are calling me a liar." "I'm not. I'm simply—" "You know what your problem is?" Crenshaw put one hand on the roof of her car and leaned in. His face was close enough that she could smell tobacco and black coffee. "Attitude. You people always have an attitude." You people. Whitney felt the words land like a slap, but she didn't flinch. She'd heard them before. In boardrooms, in hallways, in meetings where she was the only black face at the table. She'd learned a long time ago that reacting was exactly what they wanted, so she sat still, hands on the wheel, eyes forward. "Sheriff, I've been polite. I've cooperated. I'd just like to understand what—" "Step out of the vehicle." The shift was instant. His voice went from annoyed to commanding, like flipping a switch. Whitney's pulse picked up. "Am I being detained?" "Step out. Now." "On what grounds?" "You want grounds?" Crenshaw pulled open her door. The hinges groaned. The afternoon sun hit her full in the face. "How about disorderly conduct? How about obstruction? How about you're in my county and I said get out?" Whitney stepped out. Slowly. She kept her hands where he could see them. She stood 5'6" next to a man who had 6 inches and 80 pounds on her. His shadow swallowed hers. A second cruiser pulled up behind them. Deputy Billy Stokes stepped out. Young, late 20s, buzz cut and a tight jaw. He stood off to the side with his hand resting on his belt. His body cam was running. The small red light blinked steadily on his chest. Crenshaw pointed at the hood. "Hands on the car." "Sheriff, I haven't done anything wrong. I have the right to—" "You have the right to do what I tell you." He grabbed her arm, hard. His fingers dug into the space just above her elbow. He spun her around and pressed her against the hood. The metal was hot. She could feel it burning through her blouse. "Hands behind your back." The cuffs came out. Click, click. Cold steel. Too tight. Whitney felt the metal bite into her wrist bones. She winced. One sharp breath in. That was all she allowed herself. Stokes watched from the side of the road. His mouth was a thin line. He didn't move, didn't speak. But his eyes kept flicking between Crenshaw and the woman in cuffs. Across the street, about 60 yards away, Edna Calloway was standing in the doorway of her hair salon. She'd heard the cruiser lights. She'd seen the whole thing through the window. Now she was standing on the sidewalk with her phone in her hand. The camera was on. Her hands were trembling, but she held it steady. Crenshaw didn't see her. He wasn't looking. He marched Whitney toward the cruiser. She walked with her back straight, chin level. She didn't stumble. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. A small crowd had formed. 2 old men sat on a bench outside the hardware store. One was holding a paper cup of coffee. He shook his head, once, barely, then looked at the ground. The other one didn't even look up. A woman in the diner pressed her face to the glass, then turned back to her plate. Nobody said a word. Crenshaw opened the back door of the cruiser. He put his hand on top of Whitney's head, the way you see in movies, the way they push you down, and guided her in. But guided is a polite word. He shoved. Her hip caught the door frame. As he shut the door, he looked at the small crowd and said it loud enough for everyone on the block to hear. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before giving a man with a badge an attitude." He said it like a lesson, like a warning, like this was completely normal. Whitney sat in the back of the cruiser. The vinyl seat was cracked and sticky. The partition between her and the front seat smelled like disinfectant and sweat. She could hear the dispatch radio crackling. Somewhere, a fly buzzed against the window. She looked through the glass at her silver Altima on the shoulder, the driver's door still hanging open. Inside, on the floor of the back seat, the cake box had slid off and hit the carpet. The corner was crushed. Crenshaw pulled the cruiser onto the road. Stokes followed in the second car. No siren, no rush. Just a slow, casual drive. 6 blocks. To the Harmon County Sheriff's Station. Whitney didn't say a word the entire ride. She sat with her cuffed hands pressed against the small of her back and stared straight ahead. She wasn't broken. She was calculating. And Dale Crenshaw had no idea what he'd just set in motion. The Harmon County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Whitney was walked through the front door, down a short hallway lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes, and into a processing room. The paint on the walls was the color of old teeth. A water stain on the ceiling tiles spread out like a bruise. Crenshaw uncuffed her, but only for processing. "Stand there, face forward." The mugshot camera clicked. Flash. White light. Then again from the side. Next came fingerprints. A clerk, a thin woman with reading glasses and no expression, pressed Whitney's fingers into the ink pad one by one, rolled each one across the card. Didn't make eye contact. Didn't say a word. Whitney's hands were steady, but inside something was burning. Not fear. Something sharper. The kind of anger that doesn't scream. It waits. Crenshaw watched the whole thing from the doorway, arms crossed, leaning against the frame like he was supervising a routine oil change. "Booker," he told Stokes. "Disorderly conduct, obstruction, resisting arrest." Whitney turned her head. "Resisting? I didn't resist anything." Crenshaw smiled. "You opened your mouth. That's enough." Stokes typed the charges into the system. His jaw was tight. His fingers hesitated on the keyboard, just for a second, before he kept going. Whitney was led to the holding cell at the end of the hall. A concrete box, 8 feet by 8 feet, a metal bench bolted to the wall, a steel toilet in the corner with no seat and no door. A single fluorescent tube overhead that flickered every few seconds like a dying heartbeat. The bars closed behind her. The lock clicked. Crenshaw dropped her personal effects into a clear plastic bin at the front desk. Her phone, her wallet, her car keys, a pack of gum, a leather notebook, and her Pentagon ID badge. It was inside a plain black leather case. It landed face down in the bin. He didn't look at it, didn't open it, didn't care. "There," Crenshaw said. "Let her cool off. She can have her call in the morning." "She's entitled to a call now," Stokes said quietly. Crenshaw looked at him, slow, the kind of look that said, "Don't. She'll get her call when I say she gets her call." Stokes looked at the floor, said nothing. Whitney sat on the metal bench. The surface was cold. She could feel every bolt through the thin fabric of her jeans. The fluorescent light buzzed and flickered above her. A faint drip came from somewhere. A pipe in the wall, maybe. Steady. Relentless. She could hear them laughing in the front office. Crenshaw's voice, loud, casual. He was telling Stokes a story about a fishing trip. Like nothing had happened. Like she didn't exist. Whitney closed her eyes. She thought about her mother. Right now, Mama Lou was probably sitting on her porch in Knoxville, looking at the road, wondering when her daughter's car would pull into the driveway. She thought about the cake on the floor of her Altima, the photo album in the trunk. 60 years of memories she'd assembled page by page. She thought about the briefing she was supposed to dial into at 3, a cybersecurity review she'd promised General Prescott she wouldn't miss, even on her day off. It was already past 2:30. She opened her eyes. In the upper corner of the cell, she noticed a camera. Small, dusty, a tiny red light blinking beside the lens. Whitney stood. She walked to the center of the cell, looked directly into the camera, and spoke clearly. "My name is Whitney Adams. I am the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense of the United States. I have been arrested without probable cause by Sheriff Dale Crenshaw of Harmon County. The time is approximately 2:45 p.m. The camera kept blinking. Nobody was watching the monitor. Meanwhile, Crenshaw had moved on to something else. Something he had no legal right to do. He walked outside, crossed the small parking lot to where Whitney's silver Altima had been towed. Stokes had driven it back from the highway's shoulder. Crenshaw tried the trunk. Locked. He went around to the driver's side, found the trunk release, and popped it open. No warrant, no consent, no probable cause beyond 3 charges he'd made up himself. Inside the trunk, he found a charcoal garment bag, a wrapped birthday gift, a leather briefcase, locked with a combination clasp. He forced it open. The clasp bent and snapped. Inside, a Pentagon stamped laptop. A sealed folder marked Confidential, DoD Use Only, and a laminated access card for the E-ring of the Pentagon, the innermost corridor, where the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs worked. Crenshaw stared at the folder. He didn't fully understand what he was holding, but the words were right there. Department of Defense. Confidential. The Pentagon seal, 5 concentric rings, embossed in blue and gold. His fingers hovered over the folder for 3 seconds. Then he put it back, closed the briefcase, shut the trunk. He didn't tell Stokes. He didn't call anyone. He walked back inside, sat down at his desk, and said nothing, like it never happened. While Crenshaw sat at his desk pretending nothing had changed, something was already moving 2 states away. At the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, a young staffer named Peters checked Whitney's calendar for the 3rd time. The 3 p.m. cybersecurity briefing was starting. Whitney had promised to dial in. Personal leave or not, she never missed. 3 o'clock came. No call, no text, no email. Peters tried her cell phone, straight to voicemail. The phone was sitting in a plastic bin at the Harmon County Sheriff's Station, powered on, ringing silently against Whitney's car keys. Peters tried again at 3:05. Voicemail. At 3:10, he sent a text. No response. At 3:15, he picked up his desk phone and called the one person he knew would take this seriously, General Nolan Prescott, 3-star general, Whitney's direct superior. The kind of man who ate breakfast at 4:30 a.m. and ran 5 miles before most people hit snooze. Prescott answered on the first ring. Peters explained. Whitney Adams missed the briefing. Phone's off. No communication since noon. The general didn't hesitate. Trace her phone. Within 4 minutes, a GPS ping came back. Whitney's government-issued phone was transmitting from a single location. Harmon County Sheriff's Office, rural Tennessee. Prescott stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. He picked up a secure phone, the kind with no caller ID and a direct line to everywhere. He dialed, and 600 miles south, on a dusty desk inside a brick building with an American flag out front, Sheriff Dale Crenshaw's phone began to ring. The phone rang 3 times before Stokes picked up. Harmon County Sheriff's Office. The voice on the other end was the kind of voice that didn't ask twice. Calm. Clipped. Every word placed like a bullet in a chamber. This is General Nolan Prescott, United States Army, 3-star. I'm calling from the Pentagon. Put whoever's in charge on this phone. Now. Stokes froze. His hand tightened around the receiver. He looked at the phone like it had just turned into a snake. Yes, sir. One moment. He put the call on hold, walked to Crenshaw's office. The sheriff was leaned back in his chair, boots on the desk, flipping through a hunting magazine. Sheriff? What? There's a call for you. Stokes swallowed. It's the Pentagon. Crenshaw looked up, one eyebrow raised. Then he laughed, a short, dry bark. The what? The Pentagon, sir. A general. He says his name is Prescott. Crenshaw stared at Stokes for a beat. 2 beats. Then he dropped the magazine, picked up the phone, and leaned back like he owned the building. "This is Sheriff Crenshaw. What can I do for you?" He said it like he was talking to a telemarketer. General Prescott didn't match his energy. He didn't need to. "Sheriff, you are currently holding one of my people in your facility. Her name is Whitney Adams. She is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense of the United States. She was due on a classified national security briefing 19 minutes ago. She has not answered her phone because you have it." Silence. The hunting magazine slid off Crenshaw's lap and hit the floor. "Now, I'm going to say this once." Prescott's voice dropped half a register. "You will release her. Immediately. You will return every item you confiscated, and you will have a detailed explanation ready for the Department of Justice attorneys who will be contacting you within the hour." Crenshaw's mouth opened. Nothing came out for a full 2 seconds. I don't know what you're talking about. We picked up a woman for disorderly conduct, that's all. Routine stop." "There is nothing routine about what you've done. I have her GPS location pinned to your building. I have her phone signal sitting inside your station. If she is not released, unharmed, in the next 10 minutes, you won't be dealing with me, Sheriff. You'll be dealing with federal marshals." The line went dead. Crenshaw sat there, the receiver still pressed to his ear, the dial tone humming. His face had gone the color of old paper. 5 seconds passed. Then he moved, fast, faster than Stokes had ever seen him move. He lunged for the plastic bin on the front counter, dug through it, pulled out the black leather case he'd tossed aside an hour ago, flipped it open, and there it was. Whitney J. Adams, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Department of Defense, the Pentagon. Her photo, the Pentagon's seal, a holographic security strip that caught the fluorescent light. Crenshaw's hands were shaking. Actually shaking. The leather case almost slipped from his fingers. He rushed down the hall, his boots hammered on the concrete. He fumbled the keys twice before he got the right one into the lock. The cell door swung open. Whitney was sitting exactly where he'd left her, back straight, hands on her knees, eyes level. She hadn't moved, she hadn't paced, she hadn't screamed or cried or rattled the bars. She'd waited. Like a woman who'd sat through 4-hour national security briefings, like a woman who'd stared down rooms full of generals and never blinked. Crenshaw's voice cracked. "Ma'am, there's been a misunderstanding." Whitney stood, slowly. She smoothed the front of her torn blouse. She looked at the red marks on her wrists, both sides raw from the cuffs. And then she looked at him. "There was no misunderstanding, Sheriff. You understood exactly what you were doing." Crenshaw opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. If you'd told me who you were, I shouldn't have to tell you who I am for you to treat me like a human being." That sentence landed like a grenade in a quiet room. Crenshaw had nothing. No comeback, no authority, no badge big enough to cover what he'd done. He stepped aside. Whitney walked past him, down the hallway, through the front office. Stokes was standing near the counter. He wouldn't make eye contact. His hands hung at his sides. The body cam on his chest was still running. Whitney collected her things from the plastic bin. Phone, wallet, keys, badge. She checked her phone. 11 missed calls. 5 from Peter's, 4 from Prescott's office, 2 from numbers she didn't recognize. She put the badge around her neck, let it hang in plain sight. The Pentagon seal faced out. Then she walked through the front door and into the afternoon sun. Edna Calloway was standing on the sidewalk across the street, phone still in her hand. Their eyes met. Whitney nodded. Edna nodded back. Whitney got into her Altima. The dented cake box was still on the floor behind the passenger seat. She reached back, picked it up, and set it gently on the seat beside her. She dialed General Prescott. "I'm out. I'm fine." A pause. "And, General, I want this handled." She hung up, put the car in drive, and pulled away from the Harmon County Sheriff's Station without looking back. Inside, Crenshaw stood at the front window, watching her taillights disappear down Main Street. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. For the first time in 22 years, Dale Crenshaw looked small. The moment Whitney's taillights disappeared, Crenshaw's world started cracking. He stood at the window for 10 seconds. 15. His reflection stared back at him, smaller than it had ever looked. Then he turned and moved, fast. Not like a man in charge, like a man trying to outrun something he couldn't see. He grabbed the desk phone and dialed the county attorney, a man named Howell, who played poker with him every Thursday night. "Ed, it's Dale. I need to talk to you." "What's going on?"
I picked up a woman today. Traffic stop. Routine. Turns out she's some kind of federal official. Pentagon. And I just got a call from a general. A real one.
Silence on the other end. A long one. "Dale, what exactly did you charge her with?"
Disorderly, obstruction, resisting.
Did she resist? Crenshaw hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "Dale, stop talking. Right now. Don't call anyone else. Don't talk to the press. Don't talk to your deputies. Call a lawyer. A real one, not me." The line clicked off. Crenshaw set the phone down. His hand left a smear of sweat on the receiver. He turned to Stokes. The deputy was standing by the filing cabinet, arms crossed, watching. "Billy, pull the body cam footage from today." Stokes didn't move. "Why?" "Just pull it. I want to review it." Review it. They both knew what that meant. Crenshaw didn't want to review anything. He wanted it gone, erased, like the stop never happened. Stokes looked at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The fluorescent light above them buzzed and flickered. The clock on the wall ticked. Then Stokes shook his head. "No." One word, quiet. But it hit the room like a gunshot. Crenshaw's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "That footage is evidence, Sheriff. I'm not touching it. You work for me, Billy. I work for the county, and I'm not going to prison for you." Crenshaw took a step forward. His face was red. A vein in his neck pulsed. For a second, it looked like he might grab Stokes by the collar, but he didn't. Because somewhere deep in the back of his brain, past the arrogance, past the ego, past 22 years of doing whatever he wanted, a small voice was telling him that the ground beneath his feet had already shifted. And every move he made from this point forward was being watched. He turned away, sat down at his desk, said nothing. 2 hours later, they arrived. 2 black SUVs pulled into the gravel lot of the Harmon County Sheriff's Station at 5:42 p.m. No sirens, no lights, just the quiet crunch of tires on stone. 4 agents stepped out. Dark suits. FBI field office, Knoxville. 2 men, 2 women. Badges out. Faces blank. They walked through the front door like they owned the building. The lead agent, a tall woman with short gray hair and no expression, placed a federal evidence preservation order on the front counter. "Sheriff Crenshaw, I'm Special Agent Dillard, FBI. We're here to secure all evidence related to the arrest of Whitney Adams. Dashcam footage, body cam footage, station surveillance, booking records, vehicle search logs, everything." Crenshaw tried to shake her hand. She didn't take it.
Look, this was a misunderstanding. A routine traffic stop that got...
"We're not here to discuss the stop, Sheriff. We're here to collect evidence. You can cooperate, or we can come back with a warrant in 40 minutes. Your choice. He cooperated. The agents moved through the station like surgeons, methodical, silent. They pulled the body cam files from Stokes's unit, untouched, unedited, every second intact. They downloaded the dash cam footage from Crenshaw's cruiser. They copied the surveillance feed from the holding cell camera, the one that caught Whitney standing in the center of her cell, looking directly into the lens, stating her name and title. They photographed the plastic bin with her personal effects. They photographed the booking sheet. They photographed the holding cell. Then they turned to Crenshaw. "Your badge and firearm, Sheriff." His mouth opened. "You can't. You are being placed on immediate administrative suspension pending a federal investigation. Your badge and your firearm. Now." Crenshaw's hand moved to his hip, hovered over his holster. For 3 seconds, the room was silent. Then he unclipped the badge from his belt, set it on the counter, pulled his service weapon from the holster, laid it beside the badge. The metal clinked on the countertop. 2 small sounds, but they echoed through that station like the end of something. Agent Dillard placed both items into evidence bags, sealed them, signed the labels. "The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has opened a preliminary investigation into your conduct, false arrest, illegal search and seizure, Fourth Amendment violations, and potential federal civil rights violations under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. You'll be contacted by their office within 72 hours. Crenshaw said nothing. His hands hung at his sides. Empty. No badge, no gun, no authority. The agents left at 6:30 p.m. The SUVs backed out of the gravel lot and disappeared down Main Street. Crenshaw stood in the middle of his own station, the station that had his name on the door, his photo on the wall, his rules in every room. He stood there for a long time, alone. Then his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, a local reporter. "Sheriff Crenshaw, we've received reports of a federal investigation into a traffic stop today. Do you have a comment?" He shouldn't have replied. His attorney hadn't even been hired yet, but Crenshaw, the same man who couldn't stop himself from calling Whitney girl, who couldn't stop himself from saying your kind, couldn't stop himself now either. He typed back, "This is political. They're coming after me because she's got powerful friends." That quote hit the internet by 9 p.m. By midnight, it was national news, and Dale Crenshaw had just handed the world the shovel to bury him with. Sunday evening. Edna Calloway sat in her living room, a small house 3 blocks from her salon. Floral couch, TV on mute, a cup of tea going cold on the table. Her phone was in her hand. She'd been staring at the video for 2 hours, watching it, rewinding it, watching it again. The footage was shaky. Her hands had been trembling the whole time, but the audio was clear. Every word. Crenshaw's voice, the cuffs clicking, Whitney's shoulder hitting the cruiser door frame, and the line that cut through everything. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before giving a man with a badge an attitude." Edna's thumb hovered over the share button. She was 63 years old. She'd lived in Harmon her whole life. She knew what happened to people who made trouble in Crenshaw's town. A health inspection that suddenly finds violations, a parking ticket every week, a cousin who loses a county contract. She knew the cost. She pressed share. By Monday morning, the video had 200,000 views. By Monday night, 2 million. The comments section was a wildfire. Share after share after share. Quote tweets, reaction videos, screenshots of Crenshaw's face frozen mid-smirk. The hashtag wrote itself. Hashtag Justice for Whitney. It trended nationally by Tuesday. CNN picked it up first, then MSNBC, then every local affiliate in Tennessee. The chyron ran across every screen in every airport lounge and waiting room in America. Pentagon official arrested by small-town sheriff for attitude. Reporters descended on Harmon County like a storm front. Satellite trucks lined Main Street. Camera crews stood outside the sheriff's station, outside the diner, outside Edna's salon. Whitney made no public statement, not one word. No press conference, no interview, no tweet. She let the evidence speak. And while the cameras swarmed Harmon, a journalist named Tricia Holloway was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Holloway worked for a regional investigative outlet based in Nashville. She was 34, sharp, patient. The kind of reporter who didn't chase headlines. She dug foundations out from under them. She'd been quietly tracking Harmon County policing data for over a year. Traffic stop records, citation numbers, complaint files, settlement payments buried in county budgets. Whitney's arrest was the match. But the gasoline had been pooling for a long time. Holloway published her report on Wednesday. The numbers were devastating. 83% of traffic stops on Highway 11 over the past 5 years involved black or brown drivers, in a county that was 91% white. That wasn't random. That wasn't coincidence. That was a system. 14 excessive force complaints filed in the past decade, every single one dismissed internally. Crenshaw's office investigating Crenshaw's deputies, finding nothing, every time. 3 civil lawsuits settled quietly by the county for a combined $340,000. All 3 plaintiffs were black motorists. All 3 signed non-disclosure agreements. The settlements were buried in the county's general expenses, labeled as legal fees. But the part that hit hardest came from the people inside. Former deputies, 2 of them. They spoke to Holloway anonymously. One said Crenshaw referred to Highway 11 as his hunting ground, said it openly, in the break room, over coffee, like it was a joke. The second deputy said Crenshaw kept a notebook in his desk drawer, an informal scoreboard, tallies of citations issued to out-of-town drivers, broken down by race. He said Crenshaw would flip it open at the end of the month and grin. Holloway published the scans, blurred to protect sources, but the handwriting was unmistakable. The Department of Justice expanded its investigation. What had started as a single false arrest case became a full pattern or practice probe of the entire Harmon County Sheriff's Department. 4 months later, a federal grand jury returned an indictment. Dale Crenshaw, former sheriff of Harmon County, charged with deprivation of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242, false arrest, illegal search and seizure, and evidence tampering, for his attempt to have Deputy Stokes delete the body cam footage. The trial took place in federal court in Knoxville. Judge Arthur Colton presiding, 70 years old, wire-rimmed glasses, a voice like gravel and ice. He'd presided over civil rights cases for 30 years. He didn't tolerate theatrics. The prosecution's case was built on footage, Stokes's body cam, unedited, uncut. Every second preserved, because one young deputy said no when he was told to erase it. The jury watched Crenshaw grab Whitney's arm, watched him shove her against the hot hood, watched him cuff her while she said, "I haven't done anything wrong." Edna's cell phone video, shaky but clear, the crowd watching, nobody moving. Crenshaw's voice carrying across the street. The station's holding cell camera. Whitney standing in the center of the frame, calm, steady. "My name is Whitney Adams. I am the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense." GPS data from Whitney's phone. Speed records showing she was doing 58 in a 60 zone at the time of the stop. And Crenshaw's own dashboard computer, which showed no speed reading was ever logged. He never clocked her. The 72 he claimed? Invented. Completely fabricated. The testimony of former deputies. The notebook. The hunting ground. Crenshaw took the stand. His lawyer put him up there to humanize him, to let the jury see a man, not a monster. It backfired. Under cross-examination, Crenshaw contradicted his own body cam footage 3 separate times. He said Whitney was aggressive. The prosecutor pressed play. The jury watched Whitney say, "Yes, sir," and "May I ask why I was pulled over?" while Crenshaw towered over her with his hand on her arm. He said she lunged. The footage showed her stepping out of the car with both hands raised. He said she refused to comply. The footage showed her placing her hands on the hood when ordered, without a single word of protest. The defense argued Crenshaw was following department procedure. The prosecutor pulled up the Harmon County Sheriff's Department's own policy manual. Page by page, highlighted 6 separate protocols Crenshaw violated. 6. By his own department's rules. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty. All counts. Judge Colton's sentencing remarks were quiet, measured, but they cut like a scalpel. He said a badge is a responsibility, not a weapon. He said authority is a trust, not a birthright. He said the court would not tolerate any officer who uses their position to strip citizens of their dignity based on the color of their skin. 6 years. Federal prison. No parole. Permanent ban from law enforcement. Lifetime. In any state, any jurisdiction. Mandatory restitution. Deputy Billy Stokes, the man who refused to delete the footage, was cleared of all wrongdoing. He cooperated fully with the investigation. He resigned from the department voluntarily 2 weeks after the verdict. He told Holloway in a brief interview, "I should have spoken up sooner, on the road, when it was happening. That's what I have to live with." Harmon County entered a federal consent decree. Mandatory reforms, independent oversight, bias training for every officer, a civilian review board with real authority, and a complete overhaul of traffic stop procedures on Highway 11. The cruiser doors were repainted. Crenshaw's name was gone. 6 years. Federal conviction. Consent decree on an entire department. Career over. Legacy gone. And all of that, every single bit of it, because one man couldn't handle a black woman asking a polite question on a Saturday afternoon. That's it. That's the whole thing. He had every chance to stop, to step back, to act like a professional. He chose this, and the system, for once, chose accountability. Whitney Adams returned to the Pentagon on a Monday morning. She walked through the E-ring corridor at 7:15 a.m., badge on her lanyard, coffee in hand. Same hallway she'd walked 1,000 times before. Same security checkpoint. Same nod from the guard at the door. Nobody treated her differently. Nobody whispered. Nobody stared. Because at the Pentagon, Whitney Adams wasn't a victim. She wasn't a headline. She was the woman who ran a $2.3 billion cybersecurity operation, and there was a briefing in 12 minutes. She didn't miss it. She never talked about what happened. Not in the hallways, not in meetings, not over lunch in the courtyard. If someone brought it up, she'd change the subject. There was too much work to do. But she did make one trip. The Saturday after her release, Whitney drove back to Knoxville. Same route, same highway, same silver Altima. She arrived at Mama Lou's house a little before noon. 1 day late. The cake was dented, the buttercream smashed on one side, the box wrinkled at the corner. She carried it up the porch steps with both hands like it was made of glass. Mama Lou opened the door, looked at her daughter, looked at the beat-up cake. Didn't ask a single question. She just said, "Baby, get in here. I'll put the coffee on." They sat at the kitchen table for 3 hours. Whitney opened the photo album, 60 years of pictures, page by page. Mama Lou cried twice, laughed 5 times, said it was the best birthday she ever had. The cake tasted fine. 6 months after the trial, Whitney was promoted. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense, the highest civilian cybersecurity position in the building. She now oversaw the largest digital defense apparatus in the Western Hemisphere. She gave one interview about the incident. One. A 9-minute segment on a Sunday morning news show. She sat across from the host in a navy blazer, hands folded, voice even. She said, "I didn't survive that day because of my title. I survived it because I kept my composure. But no one should have to survive a traffic stop." That quote was shared 4 million times in 48 hours. 3 months later, Whitney launched the Adams Initiative for Accountability in Policing, a legal defense fund for people arrested during pretextual traffic stops. The fund provided attorneys, covered bail, and connected victims with civil rights organizations. In its first year, the fund took on 91 cases across 14 states. Dale Crenshaw reported to federal prison on a Tuesday morning. No cameras, no crowd, no supporters on the courthouse steps. He walked in wearing khakis and a white dress shirt. No badge on his chest, no gun on his hip, no mirrored sunglasses. Just a man in a pair of shoes that squeaked on the federal facility floor. Back in Harmon, things changed slowly, the way small towns change. Not overnight, not with a bang, but brick by brick. Crenshaw's name was scraped off the cruiser doors. His photo came down from the diner wall. The nail hole stayed for a while, a small dark circle where his frame used to hang. Edna Calloway's salon stayed open. Same spot, same hours, same chair by the window where she'd been standing the day she pressed record. She framed a screenshot of the video, hung it near the front register. Underneath, she taped a small handwritten note on yellow paper. "I saw something, so I said something." Customers read it every day. Most of them nodded. Some of them stopped and stared at it for a long time. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Whitney Adams is exceptional. Her title, her career, her connections. She had a 3-star general on speed dial and the entire Department of Defense behind her. When she got locked in that cell, the most powerful building in America picked up the phone. But most people don't have that phone call. Most people who sit in that holding cell don't have a general calling on their behalf. Most people who get pulled over on Highway 11, or highways just like it, in counties just like Harmon, in towns just like this, don't have a Pentagon badge in their pocket. The investigation found dozens of them, exposed them. People who were stopped, searched, humiliated, and released without a word. Most never filed a complaint. Most thought nobody would believe them. Whitney's story ended with justice. A verdict. A sentence. A system held accountable. But the real measure of a country isn't how it treats the powerful. It's how it treats the people nobody's watching. So let me ask you something. If you were standing on that sidewalk, like Edna, would you hit record? If you saw that video in your feed, would you share it? Or would you scroll past? Drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever been pulled over and felt like it had nothing to do with your driving? Have you ever watched something happen and wished you'd spoken up? If this story made you feel something, anything, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you know what to do. Because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it starts with one person, on a sidewalk, holding up a phone, refusing to look away. Be that person.
6 years, federal prison, career gone, all because one man couldn't handle a black woman asking a black question. But here's what really gets me. Whitney Adams had the entire Pentagon behind her, and even she sat in that cell with blue wreath and a crushed birthday cake. The investigation found dozens of people just like her on that same highway, stopped, shot, humiliated, except they didn't have a three-star general picking up the phone. Whitney title didn't save her that day. What saved her was a 63-year-old woman with shaking hands who hit record, a 20-something deputy who said no when he was told to erase the truth, and her own composure when everything in that moment was designed to break it. One person sees, one person refuses, one person stands still. That's how the whole thing falls apart. So here's what I want you to sit with tonight. It's the most powerful building in America. Almost didn't know she was in that cell. What happened to the people nobody looking for? And if you were standing on that sidewalk, would you be angry? Tell me in the comments. If this story hit you, like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't, because that this isn't always loud. Sometimes it's one person on the sidewalk refusing to look away. Be that person.